I have not. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to record from there. I failed to record the call. Thank you to all those people that were prompting me to start the recording. Wouldn't that have been interesting, right? Let's go ahead and get started. I want to kick off the call with a special guest. Now, this is a guest that I have seen over the last couple of months totally transform before my eyes. In fact, I saw her make a post on Facebook, I believe it was the other day. And when I saw this post, I was so blown away with the transformation. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. And so I invited Denise Barr to come on our call tonight. And maybe as we go here, I'll show the picture of what I saw then versus now. And so we can talk about that. But Denise, maybe tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And where were you at with your health prior to starting the protocol?
Well, thank you, Trent. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Denise Barr. I am from Southern California. I live in Chino Hills, and I have a health background. Back in 2015, I actually had started a program that got me very into health. It catapulted me into an area where I never really thought I would be. And oddly enough, probably about 2 years after that, something started happening in my body. And after losing 18 pounds, I started gaining weight back. And I didn't really know what was going on. Like you with your dad, I lost my dad to complications of type 2 diabetes. So for me, having morbidly obese parents my whole life, having good health was very, very important to me. And all of a sudden I started gaining weight and I started having a lot of pain and brain fog, and I was exhausted and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Um, at one point in 2018, I gained 30 pounds in 5 months. And I thought maybe I had a tumor somewhere. I don't know, because that's unheard of. 30 pounds in 5 months is unheard of. And for someone who has been working on my health my whole life. I go to the gym, I weight train, I walk. I used to run a lot. I was a marathon runner, but I had a knee replacement. It was very frustrating not knowing what was wrong. So I went to doctors, and of course, especially as women, we get the runaround like, well, it's probably perimenopause or it's menopause. They take my labs and everything comes back fine. Back in 2022, I actually I tested positive for prediabetes, and the doctor didn't say anything. They didn't even address it. And obviously, I know what that means. So I started working on reversing that. Um, but it was hard. I didn't understand what was going on in my body. I actually topped out at 220 pounds. And for a woman, that's really, really hard to say. I've always been around 145. And um, like I said, I was exhausted. I had brain fog. I had that afternoon slump around 2 o'clock. I didn't have any motivation to do anything. I didn't have any stamina. I didn't have any endurance. And that's really hard for someone who is a runner. I couldn't walk up a simple little hill behind my house without being completely exhausted. I felt like I didn't have enough oxygen. And like I said, I went to all the doctors and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I did have a test that tested my insulin levels. They were 11 at the time. But on the labs, it comes back normal. Everything's fine. My cholesterol's fine. My blood pressure's fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, I gained 75 pounds. So they just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, well, I don't know what to tell you. So I got on the shots, and I did not Ozempic, but I did semaglutide for about 4 months. I lost 19 pounds. And then for a year and 2 months, nothing worked. I was incredibly inflamed everywhere. Like I said, I hurt everywhere. And anyway, I have a friend who had posted that she was doing this program. She had her little water bottle in her hand, and she was talking about this yerba mate tea and this fiber. And I was very curious what she was talking about because I was stuck. I had been stuck for a year and 2 months. My weight wasn't moving. I was still over 200 pounds. And I reached out. She had told me what it was about. And I I thought it was a little silly. I was like, yeah, okay, what's a tea and a fiber going to do when prescription medication's not even working for me? But she told me that there's this 90-day money back guarantee, and that is very affordable. And so I said, fine, I'll try it and I will just get my money back because it's not going to work. Well, I should have gone in with a more positive outlook. My husband actually joined me the next day, so we both did this together. And since then, I've been on this for about 6 months. I've lost just about 30 pounds. I've reversed my prediabetes. My cholesterol is, I think I've dropped 42 points in my cholesterol. My insulin, my insulin went from 11 to 3.2. My A1C went from 5.9 to 5.2. I have clear minds. I have energy for days. I wake up at 4 a.m. I go resistance train. I'm building muscle. I have endurance. I have stamina. I'm able to walk those hills. I just so many things that I'm able to do that I was telling a friend today, I feel like I'm in my 20s and I'm 50. So I feel like I'm in my 20s. And that's, I think, pretty amazing because I was starting to feel 50. And I've referred a lot of people to do this. So a lot of people are doing this with me, and we have a little community here, and it's just been probably the most amazing thing that I've ever done. I feel like it honestly saved my life, and if you give me a chance, I'll start crying. So I don't really want to do that, but it's probably been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, Denise, I mean, thank you. We should run a commercial based on what you just did because that was so amazing. And I want you to know that there was a lot of people in the chat that were saying, "This is my story. This is me."
Yeah,
Some of them that sent me this privately through a private chat, and that's really, really exciting. That what you're saying is resonating with people who are today where you once were, right? And so I want to show you
yeah,
this. This picture does not do what you just said justice. It was such a beautiful story that you just shared. And there's obviously so much more. I mean, the blood work, the fasting insulin, the A1C, the lipids, all of that is much more important than what I want to show. But I want to just show what jumped out to me. Um, I was watching a video of you and I just grabbed a screenshot. I didn't probably time it in its best moment here on the right. But with your glasses on, I immediately noticed, I said, whoa, Denise looks younger and she looks
yeah,
way less inflamed. And so,
yeah,
there's a before picture of you here on the left, and this is you talking in a video the other day on the right, or just on your Facebook wall, right? And here we're
yeah.
talking to you today. I mean, it to you it may feel like 30 pounds, but to me it looks like 30 pounds and 5 years younger.
Yeah, my inflammation levels actually, I didn't say this, they actually went down to 2. There's a picture, I have a before and after picture on my Facebook that it looks like probably 30 pounds, but it's only 10 pounds, but it just shows how much inflammation I lost. And but I mean, I cannot express to everybody watching and to everybody who I can even talk to how amazing this is because I've never been able to fast. I now realize how important fasting is. We have these science calls every Tuesday, and I learned so much from the doctors. It's funny today, I didn't realize that today was about, metabolic, what are we doing?
Syndrome,
Metabolic
metabolic syndrome. Yeah.
syndrome.
Yep.
Yeah, because I just read in Metabolic about metabolic dysfunction,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the precursor to metabolic syndrome. So
Yeah.
it was a thing. And then you asked me to do this. So I was like, well, this was my time. This was what I needed to talk about.
Well, that was awesome, Denise. Thank you so much. Perfect setup for our call. Now, so thank you again, and congrats on your
Thank
success.
you.
Thanks for sharing your story with a bunch of strangers. That's brave of you, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye to Denise. We have another story coming up later, and then we have our medical professional who I'm so excited to hear from. But because we have so many new people on this call, Denise referenced this protocol that most of us on this call are following. And that may have left some of the new people a little bit in the dark where they're like, wait, okay, so what is it that she's doing? How did she do all that in 3 months or 4 months or whatever, 6 months, right? Um, so I want to just very quickly, this will be a speed run through of the protocol. And if you have more questions, maybe towards the end of the call, we can answer some of those. Okay. So I want to explain the protocol. This is me explaining the problem that is holding most of us back from, the health that we'd like to have, the body we'd like to have, and the solution. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the problem and the solution. I've got some visuals here and just go with me. And then we'll bring on our medical professional here in a moment who's going to do the real teaching. She's the real expert. So the problem that many people are not solving for is this problem known as insulin resistance. And if you're not familiar with this term, don't worry, we're going to help you become a little bit more familiar with it right now. Insulin resistance is the underlying root problem for a bunch of other problems. Things like obesity, things like diabetes, things like fatty liver, things like high blood pressure, things like high cholesterol, okay? And insulin resistance causes a lot of things that you can see, things like skin problems, and a lot of things that you can't see, like cravings and a sweet tooth, right? Migraine headache sometime. Constant hunger is usually a sign or a symptom of insulin resistance. Some of the things you can see are like these skin tags on the neck or face or in the armpits. That is a sign of a serious degree of insulin resistance. Sometimes you'll see this darker pigmentation. That would be a sign of insulin resistance. The tell sign, the biggest sign, is this protruding belly, which is characterized by visceral fat. Now, there's subcutaneous fat, which is the fat right here in our love handles. And then there's this visceral fat. The love handle fat is soft and jiggly. That's the subcutaneous fat. But this visceral fat is firm. It is hard. Even if we're not terribly overweight, if we have a protruding belly, that would be the number one risk factor. I mean, that's we're getting serious here. That is the dangerous kind of fat. That's the fat around our liver and our organs, right? And a lot of people are, worried about weight control and they don't realize, or maybe they're worried about their PCOS or their diabetes, but they're not really approaching the problem at its root, which is the insulin resistance, right? So we can talk about a lot of these symptoms, right? We can talk about a lot of these symptoms and we can solve for a lot of these symptoms by just solving this one thing often, okay? This insulin resistance. Most Americans that are insulin resistant do not know. 90% of the people that are struggling with prediabetes or insulin resistance do not know that they have it. Okay. And why is this happening to so many of us? Why is it that more than one of three of us now have this problem? Well, one of the reasons is because big food has begun processing everything. They take, everybody's familiar with white rice, right? But in nature, wild rice actually looks like this over here. So what happens is around every grain of rice is something called the bran. That's the fiber part of the plant. And the food makers remove it. And we only eat the white part. And there's a consequence to that. There's a consequence to removing the fiber, right? There are consequences when you take wheat in its natural form and you remove the fiber, you get this processed end product that is pretty much like eating cake. Okay. This part of the rice is the cake part of the rice, as Dr. Ehrke puts it, right? It's the cake part. Well, the entire American diet has become the cake part. And if we eat the cake part of everything, we run into some problems, right? Every sugar, every fiber in nature, or sorry, every sugar, every carbohydrate in nature has fiber. And if you remove the fiber, you're left with just the pure cake, right? So I want to talk about this because what has happened is on a population level now throughout the country and throughout the world, as big food has removed the fiber, we've lost all the health benefits that come from it. Fiber is what controls blood sugar and insulin. Fiber is what protects your heart and your cholesterol and triglyceride levels often. Fiber is what maintains your gut health, right? Fiber is really the key mechanism in these foods that keeps you feeling full and helps with weight management. And so when they've taken fiber out of everything, we have been left with an epidemic of health problems. And these are everywhere now. This is everywhere, right? So what do we do about it? Another thing that's happened is we went from eating twice a day or three times a day, or some cases once a day, thousands of years ago, to eating and snacking all the time. What happens when a person eats and snacks all the time? Well, it's not good. It's not how we were, it is not how we evolved. Okay. Over the last 1,000+ years, thousands and thousands of years, I should say, human beings lived in an environment of food scarcity. There wasn't a lot of it, and it rotted, it spoiled quickly. And so you had to hunt and gather your food and consume it quickly. And because of this, there was scarce amounts of food. But over the last 50 years or so, food is everywhere. Right now, in my pantry and in my fridge, and in your pantry and in your fridge, there are like 100,000, maybe 1 million calories, depending on your food storage, available to you 24/7. And when we eat and snack all the time, our blood sugar spikes and crashes all the time. But if you look at the purple line, all this eating and snacking leads to elevated insulin. And when insulin has been elevated long term, day after day, year after year, when we do this for a few years, you heard Denise talk about her elevated insulin levels, and she couldn't figure out why she couldn't lose weight and why things were so difficult. And now that she's brought her insulin levels down, she lost 30 pounds like it was no big deal. I mean, she's not trying half as hard. She's not on the shots. She's not taking the meds, right? How is that possible? It is possible by bringing insulin down. Now, there is a great way to bring insulin down, and it is free. Maybe that's why nobody really wants to talk about it, is because it is free and they can't make money off of it, right? The way to bring insulin down for free is you can force it down with, I think I lost the call, but I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know where I lost you. But I was just getting to the point of, the problem with eating and snacking all the time is that it elevates our insulin, and we can force our insulin down for free without spending anything by doing something called strategic fasting or intermittent fasting. And for sure, you've heard about this. And, this is something that Dr. Jason Fung wrote a lot about originally through Diabetes Code. And there's lots and lots of evidence, lots of science to show that this works fantastically. And so this is a bit of a long windup, but for all the new people, I wanted to explain what we're doing on this protocol. Why is this protocol working so well? What we're doing is we're simply combining fiber and fasting. And there is a protocol. Let me find the right slide here. There is a protocol that nobody is really talking about yet that we hope to popularize because it works so fantastically and is natural with no drugs. And it combines fasting and fiber. Okay. So this is something that has been studied by 20 plus different institutions now. What we're about to show you is safe. It is clinically proven. There are no drugs in it. It is guaranteed to work. And this is the protocol that we're following. It is very, very, very simple. Here's how it works. One of these you simply take before your largest meal each day. It is a packet of fiber. And when you have this fiber before your meal, you bring back into the diet what big food is taken out of it. And when you bring it back, when you bring the right types of fiber back, you get satiety, which is appetite control. You get blood sugar control. You get cholesterol control, triglyceride control, and insulin control. And all of these are listed in the physician's desk reference as specific documented benefits of this blend of fiber. I believe that this is going to change the world. I'm not exaggerating, okay? So that's what we do just before our biggest meal each day. Then, whenever we're not eating, we sip something. I'll have one or two of these, sometimes even three of these every day. And this is what you have. This yellow one is what you have when you're not eating. So when you're taking a break from food, when you're feeling deprived, when you're feeling hungry, when you're feeling snacky, whenever I'm feeling that way, I will sip some Unimate. And this raises GLP-1 levels naturally. And it's just like the easiest thing in the world, right? One when you're not eating, and one just before eating. And this protocol that comes with 2 packets of the Unimate per day and 1 balance, or you can do it the opposite if you're prioritizing the fiber. This all costs about $5 per day, which is so much less expensive than many of the other options out there. In fact, I don't know about you guys, but I save money every month on this because I'm skipping a meal doing the intermittent fasting. And so this is what we're doing. And it works so fantastically. And we'll give you lots of proof as the call goes to explain a little bit more on this, but I did want to set the table as Denise referenced a protocol, and I want you to know what the protocol is, okay? So that is what we're doing. A little bit of fasting and a little bit of fiber. And wait when you hear and see what this is doing for people's blood work, for their bodies, for their weight control, and many more things. So we're going to get to that in a moment. But I don't want to talk past the important point of tonight's call, which is our guest, Holly Ehrke. Now, Holly is somebody who I am very, very excited to hear from tonight. Holly is a FNP-C, which is a nurse practitioner. And Holly, if you've got your camera on, you might have it covered. We don't see your video yet. You might have a lens cover on, or maybe try putting, yes, the recording is on. Thanks for those of you who are checking. We don't see your camera just yet, Holly. There you are. We've got you. Okay, I'm not sure what you did there, but we have you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, but I can hear you. Can everybody hear me and Holly? Testing one, testing two.
I
Yes.
know
Okay.
my internet has been going in and out with the wind up here, so
Okay.
hopefully this will work.
Well, Holly, let me just maybe give a brief introduction of Holly, and then I'm going to be kind of your assistant and show my screen as you talk through your portion tonight, Holly. We are very, very grateful to have you. Holly is a stranger to me, but somebody who I hope to get to know much better. She graduated from Michigan State University and has worked as an emergency room RN for most of her career before becoming a family nurse practitioner. Holly is married with 3 daughters and 2 grandsons, and she loves helping people become their healthiest versions of themselves. And so, Holly, I'm going to minimize my screen here, and we're going to share your screen. And maybe as I do this, would you mind telling everybody what really turned you on to this protocol and why you, as a family nurse practitioner, are recommending this to the people you love and care about and see?
Sure. I got interested in this protocol because a former patient of mine, who is now my neighbor, was having such success, and I hope he shared some of his slides with you that I can share at the end of the presentation. Um, but with it, I feel like myself, I'm a pretty healthy person. And I'll admit, I'm kind of a nerd. I like reading journal articles and I like seeing the evidence before I'm going to help support something that I can use for myself and then help promote for my patients and family and friends. And with this protocol, there is evidence behind it that comes from Stanford University, the Cleveland Clinic, multiple journal articles where studies have been done to help support. And just seeing the evidence with my patient that I had, that we'll talk about at the end of the presentation, the transformation that he went through. And he was on the road to an early death, just because he had so many things. And see him now, he's like a different person.
Okay, so Holly, I don't know if the order of the slides as I have them is what you're expecting, so we'll see, and we can be flexible. But the
Yep.
very first slide that I see here is this one. Can you tell us about him?
Yes. So what we're going to talk about tonight is metabolic syndrome, what it is, why it matters, and really drives, the horse behind this disorder. So if you would go ahead, I'll just let you know when I need to change the slides. So
Yeah.
go ahead and change. So this is my patient that I had. Met John approximately 6 years ago, working in a rural community health center, and he was not typically my patient. Dave, when um, he was assigned, was working walk-in, and his normal physician assistant that he saw could not see him that day. And John saw me for several appointments for several weeks in a row. And the sad part about this was John was suffering from metabolic syndrome, which I'm going to discuss here in a little bit. And he was maxed out on 340 units of insulin a day. And when John shares his story, he shares that his dad died from an early age from coronary artery disease. And, just looking at him and his picture on the left, you can see he was not the epitome of health, to say the least. And when he came in to see me, he was having such bad neuropathy, which is nerve pain related to uncontrolled diabetes. And I do believe at one time, I want to say his A1C, I can't remember if it was like 11 or 16. It was like off the charts. And he was having a lot of diabetic nerve pain. He was having what's called diabetic retinopathy, and he was starting to lose his vision. And with that, there's medications that, you prescribe for nerve pain, but, I couldn't control his nerve pain. He was maxed out on medications. And, I did not have any tools in the toolbox to help him any longer. And so, fast forward several years later, John is now my neighbor and lives down the road from me. And, he's doing great. He is off all medications. He's leading a great life. And most of all, he's very healthy. So go ahead and change to the next slide. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is not a single disease, but a cluster of metabolic risk factors that progress silently for years. Metabolic syndrome is a strong predictor for chronic disease such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even stroke. And the elements of metabolic syndrome consist of 4 highs and 1 low. The highs include high blood glucose, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, a large waistline, and low HDL cholesterol. High blood sugar is defined as greater than 100 for a fasting blood sugar. High blood pressure is greater than 135 to 140 over 85 to 90. A high triglycerides are greater than 150. A large waistline would be 40 inches greater for a man or 35 inches for a woman, and a low HDL cholesterol, which would be less than 40. And your HDL cholesterol is the one that you want to keep high because that's the one that helps prevent with heart disease later in life. So if you have 3 out of 5 of these elements, then most likely you probably have what's called metabolic syndrome. So go ahead on to the next slide, if you would. So why does this matter? Because only 7% of adults in the United States are metabolically healthy. So this means that there's 93% of us that are unhealthy. And some of the long-term effects related to metabolic syndrome, like I said, are type 2 diabetes, heart attack, stroke, fatty liver disease, cancer, dementia, polycystic ovarian syndrome, erectile dysfunction, and metabolic health issues. Diabetes, when left untreated, causes accelerated vascular changes with the blood vessels that can lead to neuropathy or macular degeneration. Hypertension, what's considered the silent killer, if left untreated, can lead to fluid retention, vessel dysfunction, cardiomyopathy, and sometimes can even lead to which is called congestive heart failure. High triglycerides are a predictor of coronary artery disease that can lead to stroke. And when the liver starts to suffer over time, it begins to overproduce high triglycerides, then which increases your risk for coronary artery disease, and then also increases the risk or increases the clearance of HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol that you want in your body. And then with a high waist circumference, that leads to what is, the visceral fat that Trent had talked about. And this is related to inflammation that is happening in the body. And then the body deposits fat around the organs that can lead to chronic illness and damage. Some of the other signs, even before any of these five disorders happen, and Trent had already discussed this, were skin tags, which look like kind of like little tiny mushroom, like little attachments of skin that sometimes you'll see around the neck, maybe on the face or armpits. And then acanthosis nigricans, which is a darkening of the skin on your neck. And I always say it's kind of like ring around the collar. And it kind of has like a coarse feeling of the skin around the neck and is kind of like a wrinkly, but that's a sign of metabolic disorder. And if you're looking at these five disorders at a quick glance, they seem not to have too much in common. But like I say, like the five fingers of your hand, each one of these elements have one thing in common, and that is insulin resistance. On an interesting note, metabolic syndrome used to be referred to, it was called insulin resistance syndrome, which I found very interesting. So I don't know if there's another slide after this one, Trent.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So with insulin resistance, it starts years before any of these disorders manifest. And then the question is, what is insulin resistance? Well, what happens? The cells stop responding to insulin, causing an increase of insulin floating, throughout the body. Insulin is a hormone that's made by the beta cells of the pancreas, and it binds to the receptors of the cells within the body. And it binds to all cells. It can be your liver cells, it can be, brain cells, lung cells, bone cells. And what happens, insulin, after you eat a meal, comes knocking on the door of every cell, and it wants to be let in. And some of the doors don't open, or maybe they're only open for like a crack. And so not every cell in the body fails to respond to insulin, but some of them aren't responding well. And then what happens in the body? The blood levels of insulin start to rise higher and higher and higher. And the pancreas then is trying to compensate by releasing more insulin into the blood. This causes then high insulin levels circulating throughout the blood, which is called hyperinsulinemia. And a result of hyperinsulinemia, then you'll start to see the fat storage increase, and then the fat burning is the part that then will shut down. So how can we reverse the root cause of insulin resistance? The main thing is promoting metabolic flexibility within our bodies. And, this protocol that Trent is talking about is one of the ways. But some of the things that we also can do is kind of forcing our body to switch over from burning glucose to more of a fat burning state. We can do lifestyle changes, which includes reducing ultra processed foods, watching our sugar intake on the foods we eat and the things that we drink, eating healthy fats, increasing our protein consumption, eating more whole foods as opposed to processed foods. A big one is going to be fasting for the 12 to 16 hours. Exercising 150 minutes per week. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really only 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And then once again, like I said, using the Feel Great system with the fiber and fasting is really the key to tackling insulin resistance. So that's my little presentation.
Well, I love it. And I want to stop right here for a moment because this is just fantastic. You made it so simple where if we can stop the insulin resistance, we can stop the metabolic syndrome. And I love the fact that you had a patient in John who you saw go from, I mean, you articulated it better than I'm about to, but you said, I didn't have any more solutions for him. He was at the max dose of insulin, the max dose of medication. He was, 70 pounds heavier. His feet were hurting so bad, neuropathy pain shooting into his feet. And to see him now, a couple years later, no more insulin, no more medication, no more neuropathy. I mean, you look at him, he looks younger, he's vibrant, he's alive, right? That is just really cool, and it's very hope very hope inspiring, or hope inspiring to anybody that might be stuck and feeling like they're at the end of their rope. So thank you, Holly. And Holly, if we have time, we at the end of this call try to do a Q&A. I think there's some people that might have questions for the nurse practitioner, but we want to get more eyeballs on Holly. Holly, would you mind just putting in the chat, maybe if you have a social media handle, or if somebody wanted to reach out to you or get a second opinion from you or something, how they might do that? That would be great.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Holly. Now, we got into the protocol a little bit. We'll get into it a little bit more, but I had another guest, and this is a guest that, in full disclosure, I don't know exactly what we're going to hear. This was a person recommended to me from Megan Groth, who's been on some of our calls before. And Megan Groth said, you need to talk to Patty Lowe. She said Patty has been on the protocol and she was in a very difficult spot, and everything has changed. I think, how long have you been on the protocol now, Patty?
I've been on it since June, about 7 months.
So about 7 months. Well, Patty, because this is the first time you and I have interacted, I'm very curious to hear about your story. Can you tell us maybe first, who are you, where are you from, and where were you at with your health prior to getting started in June?
Okay. I'm Patty Lowe. I am from Tuscott, Kansas, which is by Salina. And I've always had trouble gaining weight, keeping weight off. I've always loved food. I've had stomach issues. I'm getting arthritis. My joints hurt, and just getting old. And everything I just felt like, well, that's part of getting old. So I just was living with it. Well, then about 4.5 years ago, my husband had a stroke, and that really changed our life and added a lot of stress. I had to quit my job to stay home and take care of him. Well, then I put on even more weight. And so I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And, there's so much out there to pick from that you don't know what'll work. So my sister asked, she was losing weight, and I asked her what she had been doing. Well, she introduced me to this program. And I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. It's working for her, so why not? And boy, am I glad I did, because the first couple months, I just was trying to get used to taking the product when I needed to. And I tried to eat healthy, but, I was still cheating some. But the more I learned a lot by coming on these Tuesday night science calls, because they really helped me understand the science behind it all and what I needed to do to make it work. Well, like I said, I always had gut health. For probably, I don't know, 15, 17 years, I've had chronic UTIs, and I've been to specialists, I've been to doctors, I've tried this and that, and they'd always come back. And I always said, before I ever get a UTI, I can feel it coming on. And I'd tell my doctor that. I said, I feel like there's something wrong inside my stomach, but it's not, that's what causes it, because I can feel it a week before I get it. So anyway, started this protocol, and it started doing the magic. I wasn't having as much heartburn and indigestion, the bloating, all those symptoms you get in your gut when it's out of balance. And, it just really started making a difference. And I had been doctoring with my knees, and I'm probably down the road going to need knee replacement, but I keep putting it off, and this seems to be helping. I still have good days and bad, but it's a lot better than it was. The cold weather seems to affect it some, but still it's helping. And I just feel like overall I've got more energy. I just feel like I feel better on the protocol. And my cravings, I didn't think I'd ever not crave sweets and chips and those sort of things. And Diet Pepsi, oh my gosh, I used to drink at least one or two of those a day. And now I don't. I crave Unimate.
Okay.
That's what I crave is the Unimate. I substitute teach now, and at the end of a day, that's what I want, a tall glass of ice with a Unimate in it.
I love it.
And it just really is helping. So
So I have a question, because you said that for the first month or two, you were kind of cheating and kind of figuring it out and getting used to the protocol, which I think is very normal for people. When you say nothing really happened, was weight loss something you were looking for? Did it has it happened? Did it just take longer than you expected? Or tell us about
yes,
that.
I have lost 42 pounds in 7 months. And that's amazing. I've never lost 42 pounds before. And I feel so much better. I've dropped a couple sizes in jeans and and it's been easy. I mean, it's the easiest diet. I don't even call it a diet. It's more a lifestyle change because it's more focusing on eating healthier and and the order too, eating your fiber and your protein before you eat your carbs. I think that helps too.
Okay.
And it's a good um strategy. I mean, it works. So
Now, we don't
I
have
like
much time, so I want to rapid fire a couple of questions at you, and you just
it.
tell us
Okay.
the truth. I think a lot of people hear 42 pounds in 7 months, for a man or woman at your age. That is really exciting. That is really exciting to hear. But a lot of us might be a little bit skeptical of, okay, she did this product, but what else is she doing? So, a couple rapid fire questions, and I don't know the answers because we've never spoke before. Number one, did you count any calories over the last 7 months?
No.
Number two,
And that
did you do any kind of extreme exercise?
no.
Tell us, okay. Do you exercise? What does that look like?
Oh, just keeping up around the farm, going to get the mail and feeding the animals and
Okay.
that kind of stuff. I
Have
don't
you been
really
on,
exercise.
okay. Have you been on any kind of an elimination diet where you have completely eliminated sugar or anything, something like that?
No. In fact, when I pretty well stick with the 16 hours fasting.
Okay.
And I try to eat lunch around noon after 12 o'clock. I don't eat till 12 o'clock. And some days it might be two or three. And some days, it's like, well, now it's late enough in the day. I may as well skip lunch and just have supper. And I have one meal a day. But I don't snack in between. Every now and then when I'm cooking, I'll taste something. But for the most part, I don't snack in between. But I stick with the Unimate twice a day, the balance before supper, and I try to get supper 8 by 6 o'clock. So 12 to 6 is my window of eating.
Okay. Last question. UTIs. How are we doing there?
I haven't had one, but it's been sometimes I just haven't had none. And so that's a good stretch of 7 months. That's good.
Okay.
Used to be I'd get two or three or four a year, and sometimes I'd get one right after the other because I couldn't get rid of them. But keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that's in my past. So rear view
Awesome.
mirror.
Patty, thank you so much for coming on the call. You are awesome. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad we had you, and that was just a lovely story. So thank you so much. We're so glad you're part of this community, and thanks for sharing your story with 500 strangers. So thank you. Okay, to kind of wrap up, I want to just do a quick recap of how this protocol works and what kind of an offer you'll get for being on these calls. All right. I want you to know how it works because we hope that you'll join our community and that you can share the health and be a part of what we're doing. All right. And it's really, really simple and beautiful. I mean, can you imagine what it would feel like to tell your friend Patty about this and help her get these results in 5 months or 6 months or whatever since June, right? Can you imagine what it would feel like if your friend John Cox, you told him about this protocol and he got off all of his medications and or Denise Barr, right, with her story after all that she had been through. So this is really, really simple. Okay. If you've got breakfast and lunch and dinner, what most of us are doing is we're skipping a meal, just one meal. We skip breakfast. Now, you don't have to skip breakfast. There's some ways this can be flexible to any lifestyle or any special needs. But most of us that are trying to get rid of excess body fat will skip a meal. We'll have a regular lunch and a regular dinner, but we'll skip a meal. And when we skip a meal, we force that insulin down. We get the fat burning happening. We're still getting calories for breakfast. We're still getting calories for breakfast. But we're not getting those calories from food. We are getting them from fat, right? And so we sip the Unimate through the morning fast to make us forget that we're fasting. I mean, it makes me forget about food. Sometimes I'll do another Unimate maybe after lunch, before dinner, because I'm a bit of an afternoon snacker. I used to do peanut M&Ms and Diet Pepsi, like Patty, right? And then we have the balance before our largest meal each day. Pretty cool, right? Pretty simple. Now, the cost of this is cost neutral because, I mean, if you're skipping a meal, what do you spend on an average meal these days? Well, I can't get a meal from McDonald's for $5 anymore, right? It's $10 to go fast food now. So you take the $5 to $10 that you save skipping a meal, and that will cover the cost of the protocol. So this protocol is normally $235 per month. But if you're here and somebody has invited you here, I want you to send them a message right now that says, send me the link. So ask whoever invited you to this call, just say, send me the link, and they'll know what link you're talking about. This is a discount link that will give you the discount price, not just on your first order, but on every subsequent order forever. You can lock in that discounted pricing. Okay. So that's really, really cool. And when you order at this price, you will get your own link that is your link. And so, should you ever want to refer somebody else, you can give them that same discounted price and you'll get a $10 credit on your account every time somebody orders or reorders through your link. So it's just a great way to share the health and maybe get your product a little cheaper or even for free. And this is how we need your help. We want to cover the planet with this. Now, if you're skeptical, I've got two quick things to say, and then I want to give you a lot of proof, and then we got to wrap up and maybe have a little bit of time for Q&A. So number one, if you're skeptical, it is guaranteed to work. You can literally sample it for 90 days. Use it for 90 days, use it properly, be consistent. It won't let you down. If for any reason you're not satisfied, you can just get a refund. What do you have to lose, right? Number two, if you're skeptical and you're like, well, there's a lot of supplements out there. I don't know about this. I've never heard of it. Maybe you're a medical professional. In fact, if you're a medical professional on the call, if you're a nurse or a doctor or a dietitian or a medical professional, will you put medical in the chat? We have so many wonderful medical professionals that are all about this now, right? There's Shannon Davis, a registered dietitian. We got lots and lots of medical professionals that are all about this. If your doctor's skeptical, or if you're skeptical, you can actually have them look it up in the physician's desk reference and they'll say, wow, I have not heard about that yet, but that sounds awesome. Yeah, try that. Let me know how it goes. Picture this, 90 days later, you're back in your doctor's office and they're looking over your blood work and they're like, okay, what is that stuff called again? I have to know more about it because I think I've got a bunch of patients that could use this, right? There's studies after studies after studies. We can show you studies until we're blue in the face. But instead of me overhyping it or talking about it too much, I want to ask some of you. So at the beginning of the call, I asked if there's any repeats that have been on this call. And there was a bunch of repeaters on this call. So if you've been on these calls, whether you've been using the protocol for a week or a month or a year or longer, if you would do me a favor and just maybe put a sentence or two in the chat, if you have noticed a measurable positive result, and I don't want you to exaggerate, okay? Just if you have noticed something firsthand, would you mind putting it in the chat? I'm going to read a few of these. I want the new people here to see just how powerful the protocol is. So I won't have time to read these all. I want to have a few questions. There is what is the of this protocol? Esmeen, I don't know. Maybe you meant to say what is the name? It's called the Feel Great System. Um, uh, Donna Lavender. Oh, sorry. Okay, Daryl McDaniel. I have lost 35 pounds. My A1C has gone from an 8.3 to a 5.3. Daryl McDaniel has reversed his A1C from an 8.3 to a 5.3. That's actually type 2 diabetes to no more diabetes, which is incredible on that scale. So, Renee, I've been on it for 2 years. I'm down 100 pounds off my medications, better sleep and energy. Vertigo and inflammation gone. Luann Stone, I'm down 47 pounds. My husband is down 60 pounds. My son-in-law is down 17 pounds. My daughter is down 20 pounds. My eye floater, blurred vision, and heart palpitations are gone. I went from a size 16 pants to a size 2 XL shirt to a small. I'm a lifer. Shannon Davis, who is amazing and has turned hundreds of people onto this protocol. She's a registered dietitian. She says triglycerides went down from 250 to 50, and my HDL went from a 53 to a 122. Incredible. Alexander Rodriguez says, I reversed my migraines with this protocol. Um, Kim Jackson, I went from a size 16 to an 8, tops 2X to medium, 270 to 150. I think that's weight. Incredible. My A1C went from an 8 to a 5. I'm 63. I'm off all my medications. Susan Lowen says she's down 25 pounds. Diane Weaver, hey Diane, says no more inflammation, no more acid reflux, no more leaky gut. My blood pressure's normal. Finally sleeping. I lost 40 pounds in 3.5 months. My husband is off his acid reflux meds and statins. My mom has reversed her type 2 and is off statin meds. My mother-in-law is off blood pressure medication in 2 months after 20 years of being on them. No longer needs oxygen, off statin meds, no longer pre-diabetic. Both have lost 40 to 50 pounds. I mean, how about that? I mean, Diane has told people about this and has helped her whole family. Angela Vandenboss, 2 months, I got my life back. Zoom user says no more knee pain. Jenny Byam says I'm down 35 pounds and 19 inches, triglycerides down over 50%. Okay, so this is awesome. There are 47 additional comments that I don't have time to read, but look at that. I mean, what if this could do for you what it's done for the 90 people that just commented, right? What else would happen in your life if you could have a Denise Barr experience or a Patty Lowe experience or a John Cox experience? What would that mean for your everyday life, right? And why not try something where you're going to have support and medical professionals and weekly calls and a guarantee and a system, right? I just think it's awesome. So we have a couple of people that have questions. So Holly, I'm going to bring you back, and we have just only 3 minutes, so we'll be real fast here. But Holly, one of the questions is, what would you recommend to somebody who works a night shift? How would you recommend that they adjust their schedule? Any thoughts on that from you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, I used to work the night shift. So I totally understand that. So when you're working the night shift, you just have to readjust your eating schedule like that. If you were instead of going to work in at 7 a.m., you're going in at 7 p.m. So just reverse your AMs and PMs, and don't be going to bed with a full stomach. That was the mistake that I used to do, because I would, throughout the night I would get hungry and I wouldn't take the time to eat meals. And then I would come home and eat right before I would go to bed, a big meal. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah, I like to overlap my sleeping window with my fasting window as much as possible because it's easier to fast when I'm asleep, right? So
Correct.
great. Esmeen Watts in Florida says, is this protocol kidney friendly?
Well, with it, it's interesting that you asked that, because someone had asked me this the other day. And if you're addressing, the two number causes of chronic kidney disease are hypertension and diabetes. So if you can treat the root cause, it's going to improve, your kidney function. And two, with this, you're going to be drinking a lot of fluids too, that goes along with it.
Yeah, great. And I will say that, having hosted many of these calls over the last couple of years, almost every week we have a testimonial of somebody saying my kidney function has improved. So that would be anecdotal, right? But we do hear that often, very often. Okay. One other question is, can I do it with more than one balance per day? And I actually have a balance before every meal. So I'll have a balance before lunch and dinner every day. That's what I do. And in fact, if I'm having like a super naughty meal, like if I'm eating pizza or if I'm having, spaghetti with garlic bread or something like that, where it's a lot of carbs, I'll have 2 packets of the balance in front of that meal just so I don't overeat the meal and to really control the blood sugar. So, okay, Holly, I'm sorry that we didn't have enough time. We had that technical glitch where I lost my computer and we didn't have full time for Q&A. But we hope you'll come back because that was awesome, Holly. Thank you so much, Holly. And is it Ehrke? Am I saying the last name right? Holly
Correct.
Ehrke, family nurse practitioner. Thank you so much for coming on the call. Thank you, Denise Barr. Thank you, Patty Lowe. Thank you to all of you for being here. If somebody that you love is struggling with their metabolic health, invite them to this call next week and they will thank you later. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming onto our call. This was awesome.